It was a quiet evening when my world turned upside down. I was sitting across from Maya, my wife of 3 years, in our living room. We'd been together for 6 years, and just a few months ago, we welcomed our first child into the world. A beautiful baby girl named Lily. But something felt off. I loved Lily, but I struggled to feel the kind of connection I thought a father should have with his child. Every time I held her, there was this inexplicable distance, like a thread that wouldn't quite tie us together. It gnawed at me. That night, overwhelmed by guilt, I opened up to Maya. I told her how I felt like a terrible father, how I wasn't bonding with Lily, and how much it hurt me. I didn't expect her to burst into tears, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I reached out to comfort her, thinking she was upset because of my confession, but instead, she dropped a bombshell that shattered my life. "She's not yours," Maya whispered between sobs, her words hitting me like a freight train. "What?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She's Grant's," she confessed. "Grant, my older brother. The affair had started a few weeks after Maya and I got married," she explained. "It lasted 3 years. 3 whole years of lies, betrayal, and pretending. She had known Lily wasn't mine but hadn't told me, hoping that ending the affair would fix everything. Instead, she chose to bury the truth and try to move on. But how could she? How could we? I couldn't look at her. The tears welled up, but I couldn't cry. The shock, the disbelief, it numbed everything else. Wordlessly, I got up and began packing a bag. Maya begged me to stay, pleaded for a chance to explain, but I couldn't. That night, I left our home and checked into a hotel, unsure if I could ever go back. The first night in the hotel, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of Maya's confession crushing me. Grant? My own brother? How could he do this to me? How could she? Questions raced through my mind like wildfire, each one stinging worse than the last. I avoided my phone at first, but by morning, curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled through my messages and found dozens of missed calls and texts from Maya. Each one was a mix of apologies and pleas for me to come home so we could talk this through. I blocked her. It wasn't long before my parents got involved. Of course, they'd already heard everything, thanks to Maya and Grant. My phone rang again, this time showing Mom. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, her tone brisk, almost businesslike. I braced myself. "What is there to talk about, Mom?" "Well, we know everything now. And honestly, this is a terrible situation, but it's in the past. You need to move forward, for Lily's sake." "For Lily's sake?" I scoffed. "She's not even my child." "But she's still your responsibility. You're her father, Ryan. And Maya, she made a mistake, but you have a family to think about. What matters is fixing your marriage and raising that baby." I was stunned into silence. My parents weren't even acknowledging how betrayed I felt, how devastating it was to learn that my wife and brother had been sneaking around behind my back. Instead, they were trying to guilt me into playing happy families, all for appearances. It wasn't until later that my dad let the real reason slip. Apparently, Maya's father had promised a significant investment in my dad's struggling logistics business. The catch? It hinged on me staying married to Maya. If I divorced her, the deal was off. The sheer audacity made me sick. My parents weren't urging me to forgive Maya because they cared about me. They just wanted to save their precious business. "I'm not doing this," I told them, my voice shaking with anger. "I'm not staying in a marriage built on lies, and I'm definitely not raising my brother's kid." "Ryan," my mom started, but I hung up before she could finish. That was the last straw. That evening, I found a lawyer and filed for divorce. I couldn't just let this slide quietly. A few days later, I took my anger and heartbreak and turned them into something productive, or petty, depending on how you look at it. I spent hours gathering email addresses, family members, friends, my dad's business associates. Once I had them all, I drafted an email. I didn't hold back. I laid out the entire situation. Maya's affair with Grant, Lily's true paternity, and my parents' selfish attempts to sweep it all under the rug for their own gain. I sent it to every single person on that list. The fallout was immediate. My phone started buzzing like crazy. Calls, texts, emails from people demanding to know why I'd aired my dirty laundry so publicly. My parents were livid, accusing me of ruining their reputation. Maya, I heard through a mutual friend, was devastated and had been diagnosed with postpartum depression. Did I feel bad? Not really. These people had betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. If they wanted to play the victim now, that was their problem, not mine. The hotel room I'd been staying in started to feel like a prison after a while. I barely ate, barely slept, and spent most of my time working just to distract myself. The loneliness was suffocating, but I couldn't bring myself to reach out to anyone. Eventually, I decided it was time to move forward. I couldn't keep living out of a suitcase, so I called up a realtor to help me find a small apartment near my office. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No memories of Maya, no reminders of everything I'd lost. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. A few days after filing for divorce, I was starting to feel a little more grounded. I had my apartment sorted out, started unpacking my things, and was trying to focus on work. Then, the legal drama hit. Maya's lawyer reached out with a custody arrangement for Lily. I couldn't believe it. She wanted me to step up as Lily's father because, according to her lawyer, my name was on the birth certificate. I felt like I was living in a bad dream. Sure, I'd been there for Lily's birth, but that was before I knew the truth. Did Maya really think a piece of paper would erase the fact that she and my brother had lied to me for years? I called my lawyer immediately. "We're contesting this," I said firmly. My lawyer explained that since I'd been listed as Lily's legal father, the court might expect me to take responsibility unless we disestablished paternity. The process wasn't complicated, but it would take time. Thankfully, Lily was only a few months old, so my absence wasn't likely to affect her development. Still, it stung. I didn't hate Lily. She was innocent in all this. But every time I thought about her, all I could see was the betrayal that brought her into my life. I wanted to move on, and to do that, I needed a clean break. Meanwhile, the fallout from my email was still rippling through my family. I heard from mutual relatives that my parents had gone radio silent. My mom had deactivated her social media accounts, and my dad had stopped showing up at family events. Apparently, their business deal with Maya's father was officially dead. I felt bad for about half a second, but then I reminded myself that they'd tried to manipulate me into staying in a toxic marriage just to save their business. Grant, on the other hand, seemed to be thriving. I hadn't heard from him directly. He hadn't even tried to reach out to me. But word got back to me through family gossip. He was still working his high-paying job, traveling, and living his carefree bachelor lifestyle. It infuriated me. While I was dealing with the mess he helped create, he got to skate by without a care in the world. Then there was Maya. One afternoon, I got a notification on Facebook, a friend request from an account I didn't recognize. Curious, I clicked on it and immediately realized it was a fake account. Maya's attempt to contact me after I'd blocked her everywhere else. At first, I ignored it, but then the messages started coming in. "Ryan, we need to talk. Please, just hear me out. It wasn't supposed to be like this." I didn't respond. She wasn't done, though. Over the next hour, she bombarded me with calls through the app. By the time I checked, there were 12 missed calls, and a string of messages that made my stomach turn. In one message, she blamed Grant for everything. She claimed he'd ended the affair when she got pregnant, abandoning her and their unborn child. She admitted that she'd only stayed with me because she thought I'd be a better choice. Someone stable and dependable. "I didn't want to lose you," she wrote, "but now you and Grant have both ruined my life." The sheer audacity floored me. Maya had been the one who lied and cheated, but now she wanted to play the victim. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Without responding, I blocked her fake account. The next day, my lawyer called with some good news. We had a court date to begin the process of disestablishing paternity. It felt like a small win in an otherwise uphill battle. Still, I couldn't shake the sense of dread. Maya might not have contested the divorce, but I knew she wouldn't let the paternity issue go without a fight. She'd already shown she was willing to use guilt and manipulation to get what she wanted. I tried not to dwell on it too much, though. For now, I just needed to take things one step at a time. A week before the court date, I heard from my lawyer again. He warned me that Maya had been reaching out to try and stall the process. She claimed she needed more time to prepare for the case, even though we both knew it was just a tactic to drag things out. At this point, I wasn't surprised. I'd already seen how far she was willing to go to keep me in her life, but I wasn't about to back down. My lawyer assured me that the evidence, the paternity test and Lily's age, made my case strong. As much as I hated the thought of dragging this into court, I knew it was the only way to finally put this chapter behind me. Meanwhile, my parents had started to reappear in my life, uninvited, of course. My apartment unannounced one evening. I opened the door, startled to see her standing there with a look that was equal parts determined and desperate. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, pushing her way inside before I could respond. I sighed, shutting the door behind her. "What now, Mom?" She took a deep breath. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think you're making a mistake. This court case, it's unnecessary. Lily needs you. Maya needs you. You're throwing away your family over a mistake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A mistake? Mom, she cheated on me with Grant for 3 years. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." "She regrets it," Mom said, her voice softening. "And Grant, well, he's always been impulsive. You can't hold this against them forever." I felt the anger rising in my chest. So what? I'm just supposed to forgive them and pretend like nothing happened. Raise a child that isn't mine because it's convenient for everyone else? "Family sticks together," she said firmly. "No matter what." "Well, this family broke me," I shot back, "and I'm done pretending otherwise." Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but instead, she just sighed and shook her head. "You're being selfish, Ryan. One day you'll regret this." I didn't bother responding. I opened the door and gestured for her to leave. Reluctantly, she did, muttering under her breath as she went. The court date arrived faster than I expected. As I sat in the courtroom, waiting for the judge to call our case, I felt a mixture of anxiety and relief. Maya sat across the room, avoiding eye contact. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days, but I didn't let myself feel sorry for her. When it was our turn, my lawyer presented the paternity test and made our case. Maya's lawyer tried to argue that my name on the birth certificate made me legally responsible for Lily, but the judge didn't seem convinced. After what felt like hours, the judge finally ruled in my favor. The paternity was officially disestablished, and I was no longer legally tied to Lily. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, yes, but also a pang of guilt. I didn't hate Lily. In fact, I wished her nothing but the best. But I knew I couldn't be the father she needed, not after everything that had happened. As the legal battle ended, I heard more updates about my family through mutual relatives. My parents had sold their business and were planning to move out of state to live with my mom's brother on his farm. Grant? He was still living his carefree life, seemingly untouched by the chaos he'd caused. Part of me hoped karma would catch up to him eventually, but I also knew I couldn't spend the rest of my life waiting for that to happen. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally start moving forward. Therapy became my lifeline. At first, I went reluctantly, unsure if it would actually help. But as the weeks passed, I found myself opening up more about the betrayal, the guilt, the anger, and the deep sense of loss. I also started hitting the gym again, channeling my frustration into something productive. It wasn't a magical fix, but it helped. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. The weeks following the court's decision were oddly quiet. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't blowing up with calls or texts from Maya or my parents. It was like the storm had finally passed, leaving me with the wreckage to sort through at my own pace. Work became my sanctuary. I poured every ounce of energy into it, and my boss took notice. Within a few months, I was offered a promotion, a sign that, at least in one area of my life, things were moving in the right direction. But outside of work, I was still figuring out what normal looked like. I'd spent so much time consumed by anger and heartbreak that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist without that weight pressing down on me. One night, I was scrolling through my emails when I noticed a message from a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. She'd heard about everything, of course, who hadn't at this point, and wanted to check in. Her email was kind and supportive, but one line stuck out to me. I hope you find peace, Ryan. You deserve it. Peace? The word lingered in my mind long after I'd closed the email. Was that what I was looking for? Because truthfully, I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. Meanwhile, updates about Maya trickled in through mutual friends. She moved back in with her parents, likely for the extra help with Lily. Apparently, she'd given up the house we once shared, unable to afford the rent on her own. Hearing that stirred something unexpected in me. Not pity, exactly, but a faint ache for the life we could have had if things had been different. But then I reminded myself that those what-ifs were nothing but illusions. Maya's choices had destroyed our marriage. No amount of regret or reflection would change that. As for Grant, he remained a ghost. Not a single call, text, or apology from him since the truth came out. It was almost as if he'd vanished from the family entirely, though I knew that wasn't true. My parents, now busy packing up their lives to move out of state, had shifted their focus to him. I wasn't surprised. Grant was their golden boy, the one who could do no wrong in their eyes, even after what he'd done. I wasn't angry about it anymore.